You can have you.
Main event of the evening.
Ready to race to you.
These days are
Hello and welcome to These Days Are Ours, a Happy Days podcast. I'm Peter.
And I'm Joe.
And today we are discussing Season 8, Episode 8, If You Only Knew Rosa, or If You Knew Rosa.
Okay, Peter, tell us what happens in If You Knew Rosa.
We open at Arnold's, where Al is in an unusually bad mood.
I am the boss! Now did you hear that?
When Fonzie shows up, Chachi complains to him. Al's been like this ever since he got the mail this morning. Fonzie takes his business partner aside, and Al admits it's been 20 years since his beloved Rosa Coletti walked out on him.
You can't waste the rest of your life waiting for some woman to come back to you. So I decided I'd give her 20 years and then forget her.
Al, you are a brick.
His mother kept looking for Rosa, but has had no luck, and Al is convinced he'll never know what it was that he did that drove Rosa away. He's been carrying around the last dime he used to call Rosa in his jacket pocket ever since. Fonzie, recognizing that Al is wallowing, decides to set Al up on a date with his and Chachi's Aunt Teresa, who has just arrived in town. Since Al is in no condition to be alone with a woman, he'll be double dating with Chachi and Joni. Chachi, after being directed by Fonzie, says that sounds great.
Come on, Fonz, I don't want to double date with Al and Aunt Teresa. That would be great.
The next night, Joni, Chachi, Al, and Teresa are back at Arnold's from the amusement park. Joni takes Teresa to the ladies' room to freshen up, and Chachi demands to know why Al's being such a bummer. Al apologizes and says he'll do better for Teresa's sake. When Joni and Teresa get back, Al is overly cheerful.
How long have you been living where you said you were living?
Chicago?
Chicago.
Over 20 years.
Wow. 20 years.
Until he suddenly mentions Rosa. He's called away by Lori Beth, who is now a waitress at Arnold's, for help with the grill. Teresa asks Joni and Chachi if setting her up on a date with a guy who's obviously in love with another woman is some kind of joke.
Is this some kind of joke?
Chachi, changing the subject, tells Teresa to get some change for the jukebox from Al's jacket. They find Al's special dime, right as Al comes out of the kitchen. Al grabs back his dime.
Somebody better have a good explanation for this.
And Teresa calls him a fruitcake and storms out. Al spends the night at Arnold's, and the next day he's visited by Fonzie and Chachi, who give him his mail. Al reads his letter, then storms out. Chachi then reads it. It's from his mother, who has finally found Rosa and is sending her to Arnold's next Saturday night.
She'll be at Arnold's next Saturday night, 8 o'clock. Don't mess it up this time.
2 nights later at the Cunningham house, Marion is off visiting her mother, who has broken the arm of a man who tried to steal her purse. Howard is making creamed chipped beef for dinner. It was a specialty in the army. Al stops by. He hasn't eaten in 2 days, in an attempt to slim down for Rosa. She remembers him as a sex symbol who looked like Ricardo Montalban.
Corinthian leather. Of course, why not the best?
In runs Roger, wearing tiny shorts, much like last episode, saying he runs every day to keep weight off. Al runs out of the house. He doesn't make it far before he passes out.
Hey, look, he's running. He's walking. He's falling.
The next day, Al goes to a gym in hopes of getting fit in 5 days. The trainer tells him for the next 5 days, he eats and sleeps at the gym.
It's gonna take me that long to get that guy in a pair of tights.
Saturday night, Al arrives at Arnold's, and Fonzie tells him he looks dapper.
Hey, that mustache, Al. You know, it's so perfect it hardly looks real.
It's not real. It's eyebrow pencil. I've been so nervous all week, my beard stopped growing. You think she could tell it's a fake?
Yes.
He goes into the kitchen, and Chachi wonders to Fonzie what the years have done to Rosa. What if she's fat? Or ugly? He's proven wrong once Rosa enters, wearing a stunning blue dress and scarf. Fonzie and Chachi leave, and Rosa reunites with Al after 20 years.
Rosa?
Alfredo.
You're beautiful.
She tells him he still looks just like Ricardo Montalban. He puts her favorite song on the jukebox, and they dance a tango until Al abruptly stops.
What's wrong, Ella? I don't understand. What happened?
He asks Rosa why she left him, and Rosa admits Al did nothing wrong. She just felt like leaving. All the other men got over it, but Al spent all these years thinking he did something wrong. She tells him she's getting married in Oregon next month, but she might not go through with it. Who knows? She might stop by Milwaukee in the future to relive old memories. Al says he's been reliving old memories for 20 years. He tells Rosa something he hasn't told anyone in a long time.
I deserve better than that.
Rosa agrees with him and says she's glad they had one last dance. Al thanks her for visiting, and giddy over no longer feeling guilty, hugs her. They say goodbye. Al calls up Teresa, apologizes for their last date, and asks her out.
Hey, listen, how about a date? Let me try to make it up to you, okay? What do you say?
The next day at Arnold's, Al is going on a double date with Teresa, his cook Clarence, and Clarence's date to see Little Person Wrestling. Chachi will be in charge of the restaurant while Al is gone. Then Roger and Fonzie run in. Roger is in sweatpants and is heavily perspiring. Fonzie is in his usual jacket and boots and isn't sweating at all.
I don't understand it, Fonz, really. But you don't even work out. Well, not in a traditional sense.
Thank you, Peter. That was If You Knew Rosa. It first aired back on January 6, 1981. Happy Days was followed by a new Laverne and Shirley. This week, Shirley becomes the other woman when she dates a doctor who is estranged from his wife.
I'm just the other woman. I don't count at all in your life.
CBS had a new episode of The White Shadow in which the basketball team makes a demo recording of their singing, not realizing that it's at their own expense.
What's a demo? Oh, a demo's a recording, Libby, of my singing voice. What do you mean I can't sing?
And NBC aired a new episode of Lobo in which Sheriff Lobo investigates when one of his deputies, Perkins, apparently dies on the operating table. So, Peter, of those three choices, what are you watching?
Okay, I admit that the Sheriff Lobo one doesn't sound super exciting, but based on everything else I've heard about that show, I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt.
I am probably, again, watching The White Shadow, mainly because I want to hear the basketball players sing. I always find it amusing when athletes try to act or sing or dance or do comedy. So,
like the Super Bowl Shuffle.
Exactly. So I'm hoping for something like that out of that episode.
We are the Bears, shuffling crew, shuffling on down, doing it for you.
If You Knew Rosa was directed by Jerry Paris and it was written by Rhea Nepes. The most recent of Rhea's episodes that we covered was Dreams Can Come True. As for guest stars this week, well, let's start with Nancy Marvey as Rosa Coletti.
I'm Rosa Coletti.
We knew that. Yeah. We knew that. Just stand there.
Nancy is a Minnesota actress who's best known for her stage work, but she's done some TV shows and films too. She's Marissa Tomei's mom in Untamed Heart, for instance.
What do you want? I can't do anything right now. What do you need?
Is she gonna get something to eat?
Later.
More recently, she was in the movie Project Eden. So, Peter, what did you think of Nancy Marvey as Rosa Coletti?
I found her to be very charming, and I think she did a great job at making Rosa feel sort of magnetic in a way. Rosa is not exactly a likable character. She basically abandoned Al without so much as a how do you do, and sent him into a shame spiral for the last 2 decades, and she doesn't seem to be all that sorry about it. Then she suggests that she abandon her fiancé and maybe hook up with Al again. But I think Nancy does a good job at making her feel fun in a way. She seems like someone fun to hang out with. You get why Al might have fallen in love with her 20 years ago, even if she is kind of an asshole.
Nancy Marvey's main responsibility in this episode is to be this woman that Al has pined over for 20 years. And how do you live up to that? In a way, Rosa does live up to her reputation. She's magnetic. She's vivacious. She has this air of fun and romance and excitement about her.
And now a gal whose ebullient alacrity are only exceeded by her elan and perspicacity.
My only criticism of the performance is that I didn't buy the accent at all.
Yeah, she gives Rosa a trace of an Italian accent that seems a little bit off. I mean, Al doesn't have that accent, and he's Italian-American too, and neither do Fonzie or Chachi.
Yeah, and I think Nancy Marvey might have gotten Italian confused with Dracula. She has.
I never drink. Why?
We also have David Paymer as Dwayne.
Now, you are all mine for 5 days.
David is a very busy character actor from Long Island, New York, who's been a ubiquitous presence in TV and film for over 40 years. This episode of Happy Days was near the beginning of his long and very prosperous career. David's movies include Ocean's 13, Bad Teacher, Drag Me to Hell, The Hurricane, Get Shorty, Amistad, Quiz Show.
No, Herb, it's a hell of a thing. I'm looking at the thing today. You know, this Trendex rating?
Yeah?
Well, it's a damnedest thing, but you've plateaued.
And City Slickers. On TV, he's had recurring roles on I'm Dying Up Here, The Larry Sanders Show, The Commish, Line of Fire, The Good Wife, and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. He's guested on Lucifer, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Grey's Anatomy, The Mentalist, Entourage, Gilmore Girls, My Name is Earl, and many more. He's also directed episodes of Gilmore Girls, Grey's Anatomy, Melrose Place, One Tree Hill, and other series. Peter, what did you think of David Paymer as Dwayne?
I see where he could be a very comedic character, like he's an overly intense gym trainer, but I found him to be kind of underutilized, and that's the way I feel about Al's entire subplot about getting back into shape for Rosa. Along with being vaguely fat-phobic, it just shows up like halfway through, and then it just disappears again halfway through. It feels like it doesn't really have much of an impact, which is a shame because I feel like David Paymer could have done more with the role if he was given it the chance.
Those are my thoughts too. They set up this big scene with Al and Dwayne, and then nothing happens out of it. They're there for a few minutes and then the show moves on. So I was wondering, what is the point of this sequence? However, I think David Paymer is funny in his few minutes on Happy Days. Hopefully in the fashion part of this podcast, we can talk about what David is wearing during that scene. We also have Poppy Lagos as Aunt Teresa.
Look, is this some kind of a joke? The man is in love with another woman.
Poppy is an actress from Massachusetts who had a handful of film and TV credits in the 1970s and 80s. On TV, she appeared on The Doctors and Knots Landing. Her movies include I Want to Hold Your Hand, Going Ape, A Perfect Couple, and The Hunter, plus a made-for-TV movie called Pray TV.
Pray TV, religion or show business? You decide. Monday.
Peter, what did you think of Poppy Lagos as Aunt Teresa?
She's kind of the inciting incident of the episode. The failed date that she and Al and Joni and Chachi go on is the thing that makes it clear that Al isn't really getting better when it comes to Rosa, which now that I think about it kind of contradicts the earlier episode, Second Wind, about Al getting his groove back.
Aunt Teresa serves a function in this plot. We don't really learn that much about her. She's not supposed to be a very colorful character or exciting character.
She didn't grab our attention with memorable catchphrases or comical accents.
She's just supposed to be a normal, regular, everyday kind of person that you might meet. I would say the performance is fine.
I'm confused about how she's related to Fonzie and Chachi.
I'm still confused about how Chachi and Fonzie are related to each other.
I think Chachi's mother is Fonzie's father's sister.
I am your father's brother's nephew's cousin's former roommate.
So, like, she's Mrs. Arcola Ney Fonzarelli.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true or if I just made that up.
I'm willing to go with it. As for songs this week, we hear Blame It on the Bossa Nova.
Blame it on the Bossa Nova with its magic spell.
A top 10 hit for Edie Gourmet in 1963.
Blame it on the Bossa Nova with its magic spell. Blame it on the Bossa Nova that it did so well.
I hope we hear that in more episodes because I thought that was kind of a fun little song. We also have Blueberry Hill by Fats Domino. This is the first time we've heard Fats in a while on Happy Days, though his name is still in the end credits of each episode. He and Anson Williams are the last two musical artists mentioned there. I feel like that tradition is going to go away next season. I feel like that is about to die.
I think you're right. I think they stop around the next season.
We also hear for the first time on Happy Days, but definitely not the last, Puff the Magic Dragon. This folk song was a big hit in 1963 for Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Puff the magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu.
It was based on a poem written in 1959 by a Cornell student named Larry Lipton. Larry insists the song is not about drugs and admits to being irritated by the question.
To puff the magic dragon means to really to smoke marijuana cigarette.
Puff's just the name of the boy's magical dragon.
He is very grateful, though, for the money that the poem brought him over the years. And again, we hear those lazy, hazy, crazy days of summer, a 1963 hit for Nat King Cole. Obviously, this is a song that Happy Days has the rights to this season, and they're going to use it over and over again. As for cultural and historical references, this episode is named after If You Knew Susie, a popular song from the 1920s that was originally written for Al Jolson, but is more associated with Eddie Cantor.
If you knew Susie like I know Susie, oh, what a girl.
Al tells Chachi to shape up or ship out. This was an expression used by the U.S. Navy during World War II. Returning veterans brought the phrase home with them from the war. Chachi compares Al to Godzilla.
Went out for the mail this morning, and when he came back, he turned into Godzilla.
The large and destructive prehistoric monster debuted in the 1954 Japanese classic Gojira, directed by Ishiro Honda. That film was dubbed into English and renamed Godzilla King of the Monsters in 1956.
Godzilla, King of the Monsters, alive, surging up from the depths of the sea on a tidal wave of terror to wreak vengeance on mankind.
Since then, Godzilla has appeared in over 30 films, both Japanese and American, not to mention TV series, comic books, video games, and much more. Fonz says that Al's nose is going to grow. In the 1883 book, The Adventures of Pinocchio, by Italian author Carlo Collodi, the title character's nose grows whenever he lies.
If I lie, my nose will grow like a little wooden boy named Pinocchio. And you all know how the story go.
Fonz made a similar threat to Joni in Smokin' Ain't Cool. Fonzie wants to turn Al from Jekyll to Hyde. The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is the immortal 1886 novella by Robert Louis Stevenson. It's about an English physician who develops a serum that transforms him into the evil Mr. Hyde.
You know that the proper pronunciation is Jekyll? That's what the author of the novel insisted, Robert Louis Stevenson, but only the first sound movie got it right, which was the one starring Frederick March, and every movie since then said Jekyll, and nowadays that's kind of... I know, I'm only delaying the inevitable.
Fonzie asks if Al dated the woman on the dime.
You dated the woman on the dime?
He's referring to dimes that were minted between 1916 and 1945. They featured Lady Liberty wearing a winged cap similar to that worn by the god Mercury. The model is believed to have been Elsie Stevens, the wife of poet Wallace Stevens. Al, Teresa, Joni, and Chachi go to an unnamed amusement park, probably the same one that Fonzie went to in Kid Stuff. Milwaukee actually used to have a lot of amusement parks in the late 1800s and early 1900s, several of them sponsored by the local breweries, but they mostly died out in the 1910s. By the time of this episode, circa 1963, the character's best bet would have been the Muskego Beach Amusement Park, which changed its name to Dandelion Park and then finally closed in 1977. Howard is preparing cream chip beef on toast, which was a food commonly served to soldiers during World War II.
I just got a call from the general about a letter you wrote complaining about the cream chip beef on toast. So now what's wrong with the cream chip beef? Said I eat it and I like it. Jenkins said, well, Captain, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told the general in the letter. That the cream chip beef is too loose.
Jenny alludes to it having another name. Back then, soldiers commonly referred to it as SOS, or shit on a shingle. Howard has to jump in and stop Jenny from saying what she's about to say.
You can't say curse words on Happy Days.
You absolutely cannot. Al says he used to look like Ricardo Montalban. Modern audiences probably remember this Mexican actor best for his role as Mr. Rourke on Fantasy Island or as Khan on Star Trek.
English. I thought I dreamed hearing it. Where am I?
But he was a major movie star in the 1940s and 50s, often playing romantic leads. Al and Clarence are attending a quote-unquote midget wrestling event. This sport peaked in popularity during the 1950s and 60s with such stars as Little Beaver, Lord Littlebrook, and Sky Lolo.
This gentleman is without a doubt the greatest midget wrestler of all time. Would you please welcome Sky Lolo?
It has since fallen out of favor, both for promoting stereotypes and for the use of the offensive term midget. Other observations this week. One of the patrons that Fonzie ousts from his table is Mickey Wheatley, who also plays one of Fonzie's auto shop students. So I wonder, is it the same guy?
Maybe he's aging backwards and he's going back into high school, like Benjamin Button.
Who is this guy? Mickey Wheatley is basically whoever they need him to be. Jenny Piccolo doesn't really need to be in this story, but I'm glad she's here anyway.
Yeah, she gets to make fun of Howard's bad cooking, and we love her for it.
I want our listeners to take a good look at the exterior of Dwayne's gymnasium. The sign outside just says Gymnasium, Massage, Steam Room, Physical Therapy, and it looks like the entire building, or at least the facade of it, has been constructed within a soundstage. You can even see the roof of the soundstage looming over the gym. So maybe in universe, this place is supposed to be inside a parking garage or is located underground.
Look, I'm calling it. I don't think that Dwayne is a real trainer. I don't think that place is a real gymnasium, massage parlor, steam room, physical therapy place. I think that Dwayne is a con man.
Well, the evidence for that is that for the rest of his career, David Paymer never played anything close to an athlete or a gym rat or a coach of any kind. He always plays nerds and businessmen. So what's he doing in this part? I have no idea. A few times during this episode, I wondered if Rosa left Al for a tie salesman or a tie salesman.
This was the time I made the last phone call to Rosa the night she went off with that tie salesman.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it was a tie salesman, as in someone who sells ties, not a tie salesman in that he was a salesman from Thailand.
That would make a more interesting story.
She decided to move to Thailand in the 1940s, it would have been. I mean, she seems like a gal who likes excitement.
Yeah, she would do it. Happy Days sometimes abuses the sad music during the climactic scenes of episodes. This was starting to get bad during season 7, but this week is pretty egregious as the sad theme plays during a scene that is not even particularly sad.
Oh, hi. Teresa!
Every episode now has to end up being sad and sentimental at the end. Why does that have to be that way, Peter?
I feel like they're kind of flailing, trying to find a new direction, and they're not really succeeding.
They're trying to add emotion to this scene that it really doesn't merit. So, Peter, were there any outstanding Happy Days fashions in this episode?
I really loved Rosa's midnight blue dress. It's a long, flowy gown, and it's sleeveless, and she's wearing a matching scarf, and she just looks absolutely stunning. And I also liked it when Roger showed up wearing more tiny shorts. I know that Roger kind of gets a bad rap, but hey, if they keep putting him in tiny shorts, he's got my seal of approval. And of course, there's David Paymer's quote-unquote gym rat outfit. Would you like to describe it for our listening audience?
It is a full-body black leotard, like you might wear if you were in the circus, and over top of it, he wears electric yellow shorts, and he looks like somebody who is trying to make a homemade superhero costume.
Hello? Human Fly here. Come on! I stayed up all night dyeing my underwear.
You know, like one of those people who tries to fight crime in their own neighborhood and dresses up like a superhero? And he is in no way dressed up like somebody who would be at a gym. Is he an acrobat? Is he a sideshow performer? What is going on here?
Exactly, because he's not a real gym trainer. He's trying to scam Al.
There's the other piece of evidence is what he's wearing. And as for Rosa's dress, it has to be great because Rosa's buildup is so big in this show. What she's wearing has to be absolutely perfect. So, Peter, did you have any other observations you wanted to make about If You Knew Rosa?
Okay, so thinking about it, it does kind of make sense that Al would be more reflective on having lost Rosa, since it's the anniversary of when she left him. So maybe this doesn't really outright contradict Second Wind. So fair enough.
So, Peter, I will ask that age-old, timeless question. Was this episode any good?
It has elements that I like, but overall I don't think it really comes together correctly. I like Al a lot. I like that this episode is about him developing some self-respect and realizing he doesn't have to hate himself for something that happened 20 years ago because he didn't do anything wrong. But I feel like the episode doesn't really hit its mark. I think that the almost subplot of Al joining a gym is kind of underutilized. I really didn't like the weird undercurrent of fat phobia in this episode. There are a few subtle jabs made at Howard's weight once again, and we also get Chachi wondering what if Rosa got fat in 20 years, which could be chalked up to the fact that Chachi is the worst, but it could be more reflective of societal dislike of fat people.
I found this episode mildly amusing and mildly involving, but nothing better than that. I like stories about Al. The season that Second Wind aired, I believe I put that in my top 5. I don't think this one lives up to that exactly. One thing that Happy Days does a lot over the course of its 11 seasons is if characters are mentioned but never seen, Happy Days eventually lets us see them. We got to meet Arnold. We got to meet Chachi's mother. We got to meet Jenny Piccolo, obviously. At the very end of the show, we get to meet Marion's mother. We even get to meet Clarence, who gets mentioned a lot in this episode. And Clarence seems to be having a crazy life. He's coming into the restaurant on his hands and knees every day.
You should have seen him crawling in on his hands and knees.
Al, that's how he always comes to work.
And you're still working with him? That seems like a real red flag. That seems like a cry for help. Obviously, when they were thinking up this episode, the writers thought, well, Al mentions Rosa Coletti a lot. We should do a Rosa Coletti episode. I don't know that I really needed closure on Rosa Coletti. The one thing I can say that this episode accomplished is I'm guessing that Happy Days does no more Rosa Coletti references.
Yeah, and if they do, then that means that we win a prize.
I guess so. All in all, I would say don't go out of your way to skip If You Knew Rosa, but don't go out of your way to see it either. So, Peter, how can people keep up with us and find out about all the wonderful things we are doing?
Listeners can follow us on Twitter at Fonzie Podcast. They can follow me on Twitter at Peter Volfranc. That's PeterVulfranc.
And they can follow me on Twitter at Joe_A_Blevins. They can find this podcast online at thesedaysaroours.libsyn.com. And they can email us with questions, comments, and concerns at thesedaysaroourspodcast@gmail.com. So, Peter, what do we have on the docket for next week?
Next week, Joni, Chachi, and Jenny steal Fonzie's money so that they can buy him a new motorcycle. And Fonzie gets suspicious of the wrong person in The Sixth Sense.
Wow, this is the movie that M. Night Shyamalan based that whole movie on.
I see dead people.
So I'm very excited to see it. See you later, alligator.
In a while, crocodile.
I remember you. You're the one who made my dreams come true a few kisses ago. I remember you. You're the one who said I love you too. Didn't you know? I remember too a distant bell and stars that fell like the rain out of the blue. When my life is through and the angels ask me to recall the thrill of them all, then I will tell them I remember you.
Yes.